2023/2 called Progression. If you're wondering, have I done this video already before? The answer is yes, but that video was an hour and a half long. So in this video, hopefully we're going to be capping at 30 minutes and providing a summarized overview rather than a long rambling take, which is what happened the last time. If you like such content, do like and subscribe. If not for me, for the Marine. I know it's upside down. Da, da, da. All right, awesome. So let's get into it. So let's start off by what is Stormgate and why it should matter. So what Stormgate is that it's an up and coming RTS developed more importantly by Frost Giant Studios. Now the folks behind Frost Giant Studios actually happens to be the ex StarCraft, mostly from the ex StarCraft 2 team and ex Blizzard employees. Basically, these people are the ones who have done a lot of RTS before and are trying to make the next great RTS. It hasn't been released as of time of recording, but hopefully it's something that you want to keep your eyes out on. Again, if you're watching the video, please go and wishlist on Steam. Go and follow these sites. Go and follow these people. If you want to know more about what Stormgate Frost Giant is specifically, I have a video called "What is Stormgate?" A short answer as well as one that is a longer answer. So that's what Stormgate is in brief. So what we're going to be doing today, compared to the last time, is that we're going to be dissecting this discussion topic more from a summarized point of view. So what I'm going to attempt to do is I'm going to summarize all of this content as quickly as I can, as concise as I can, as accurately as I can, so that it's digestible for you, the viewer. After that, I'll be answering the core questions that they have at the bottom. Again, our questions to you. The point of these threads is for people to give their thoughts and responses, it's like to Sultan here, about a specific topic. So what has happened in the past and what will almost certainly happen this time is that they would post a topic such as on the war chest. Here we go. They'll post a discussion topic on the previous one was war chest. They'll talk about it, what they think, what they meant. They'll have questions prior, and they'll let people respond. And then after that, they will post their thoughts on the war chest. The idea for this is to give these content creators feedback into what you would want in the game. Again, if you're interested in game design or business, you just want to talk about games, you really should come and join this community. You really should, join the discussion topic, give it more upvotes. Again, your input really does help the creators make the game. So, how am I going to help summarize the point of progression? Before getting to the questions, well, the answer is via a flowchart, a Stormgate progression flowchart. Alright, so, and again, once this is done, I have the document where I go through, I will make this bigger later, where I go through what the questions are as well as my responses to them. Again, I'll make it bigger later. Okay, so when Stormgate talks about progression, they talk about two main types. They talk about in-game progression, as they call match progression, as well as out-of-game progression, aka meta progression. So let's go down to match progression. Now, in match progression, they did state roughly about here that they're looking at two main ways, which is unit veterancy as well as the inventory system, hence the split. Here, one interesting distinction I only saw upon rereading it was that the match progression might be applied to all. Again, a star. Everything right now is speculative. Whereas the inventory system was more for campaign and 3-player co-op. So let's follow match progression down to unit veterancy, of which this can be split into two separate categories: unit veterancy that affects gameplay, and unit veterancy that is purely cosmetic. So, in this you have a ranking system, and a good example is the CNC, the Command and Conquer series. So let's talk a little bit about that. So how unit veterancy works in Command and Conquer, particularly Tiberian Sun, is that units may get access to increase health, damage output, other benefits, blah blah blah. Here's the important point. Unit veterancy is acquired by destroying certain amounts of enemies but can be obtained by other means. Okay, so what that really means, and again, I'm speaking as somebody who's played primarily the Red Alert series, is that if a unit, let's say this Marine, kills a bunch of other marine or zealots or zerglings, it will get increasingly stronger and stronger and bigger over time. How exactly that works kind of depends, because in the red alert system, it's not based on how many units you kill, even though that's what it said. It's based on the cost of the unit killed. So a single marine that's able to kill, you know, 3 tanks would rank up fast or as quickly as a marine who managed to kill another 20 marines if he's still alive. So this has always been an appealing idea from a gameplay perspective, because this is how real life works. In real life, you do have special, or rather, units that are fighting and still alive tend to get better at their job. The person again, it's what Bruce Lee says. It's the person who has practiced a kick 10,000 times. If you've done it more and you're still alive, you're going to be better at it. The question is, do you want such a system in in your RTS and in your game? Now, an important point for Red Alert 3 specifically that I am aware of is that just killing units is not the only way to gain veterancy. There are things like, here we go, can be obtained by capturing a new neutral structure, the Veteran Academy, which this is what it looks like. Very fancy looking building. But again, that's a fundamentally different concept than what you had in StarCraft 2, where there were neutral buildings that you could capture. Right, so the core question of this, as per this flowchart, is do you want a system where units can level up and become stronger and stronger and stronger based on what they kill? Uh, as on to this point, there's an excellent article here by Wayward Strategy, and he goes into this deep dive about what it is. I've read the article and I think it's great, but I don't really think it's required reading in order to understand this. But again, please go ahead and read the article. Great props to Brandon Castile for making this article. Lots of pretty visuals. I would assume this unit over here does more damage than the one over there. He's I don't know what rank this is, but he's got 3 stars. That has to be nice. All right. So that's one. The other one, however, is purely cosmetic, such as the kill counter. Now, this is actually something that actually exists in StarCraft. Let's get this right. Nope, that's Vermintide. There. So this is actually quite important. This actually exists in StarCraft. So I set up this example earlier. So you can see these units at the top for Protoss, Zerg, and Terran are currently at 0 kills each. But their counterparts at the bottom have been chewing away at this group of Marines, Zerglings. This Archon is at 15, it's a Master. This Ravager is 9, it's a Slayer, and this Siege Tank is a Sergeant. The more it kills, the more it ranks up. But again, it's purely cosmetic. This Archon and this Archon do the exact same amount of damage as of right now. A key distinction made by Wayward Strategy is that the damage output, as defined by unit veterancy, cannot be purchased in other means except via the game itself. Although Red Alert kind of skirts that line with the Veteran Academy. So if this were to kill a few more faster, one more shot, okay, it's now an Executor. And this Archon can do the same. Disciple, come on, get a better shot. One more. There, it's now a Mentor. This is true for the Zerg. This is true for the Terran. So this is a purely cosmetic unit veterancy. The maximum and how it is defined is basically dependent on the game. Let's back. So in StarCraft 2, unit veterancy, here we go, is based on skills by making a kills, unique stats. So here's the table in case you're curious, the maximum 20 plus and a commander. Again, importantly, this does not have any difference whatsoever on the gameplay. So yes, so that's what we're talking about in terms of match progression, the in-game progression in the middle of each particular match as defined here. Again, match progression, meta progression. Alright, so let's talk about the other system, which they mentioned is campaign and 3-player co-op only, which is the inventory system. Okay, so what they're talking about, and the example even cited here, is Warcraft 3 inspired inventory system. So let's talk a little bit about that. I'll be very honest, I didn't play that much Warcraft 3, but here's my best attempt to explain. So, in Warcraft 3, again, links to all of these websites will be found, down in the description. And read there. Okay, so basically in Warcraft 3, you had a system where you could buy different items. The one in this example is called the Mask of Death. While wearing this mask, a hero will recover hit points equal to 50% of the damage, and it gives you lifesteal. These items could be put in this inventory down here, or the bag, and you kind of had to decide what inventory items you wanted to have. You had consumables such as mana and health potions. Also had, you know, things like the Mask of Death, which would let you live longer. This had a effect on gameplay, and we'll get into that when we answer the questions on my thoughts and how it is. But I'm just setting up the definitions of what is the inventory system. This is what it was for Warcraft 3. This, by the way, the transitions on the ground are what the items would look like. You would need to click on the item to see what it was, and then you put it in your bag. It could also be traded among players in the game itself, and that is basically how it worked. Okay, so that's the inventory. So moving back up, we go to the other one out of game, and this is a bit more relevant, a bit more accessible to more people. So what kind of meta progression do you want outside of the game? Now, so this is then split again as per the tossed into two categories, which is achievements and achievements as well as leveling up. So the example I want to bring into this here is two examples. One is StarCraft 2, which is already open. The other that I've been playing a lot, you can see on my channel, is Vermintide 2. Let's go to StarCraft 2 first and talk about what kind of in-game progression systems they have. But before we go that, I already have the links open. So one area is via achievements. So there were a shit ton of achievements in StarCraft 2, and they were split very, very even. They were split a lot. For example, you had campaign achievements, which are these four. You then had co-op achievements and versus achievements. So let's just take a quick look at what those achievements are. Okay, so if we look at Wings of Liberty, these are campaign achievements. Let's just take this example. Okay, so some of them are a bit more straightforward. For example, on this mission, for this mission it's basically a speed run. It's to complete it before the 5th timestamp. And this achievement is also a reference to a film. This one's pretty straightforward. This one is basically just play better and clear it faster. Now, this one is the tricky one. This one called Army of Darkness is to complete the mission on a higher difficulty while destroying structures at night. It basically changes the way you play because you need to play more aggressively rather than defensively. Now, I would love to discuss each and every one in more detail, but this is very, very mission specific. So honestly, the Wings of Liberty campaign is free. Just go and play it yourself. Yeah, now there were also other achievements, such as the Terran Solo 750, where you had to win 751 v1 games to get the Battlecruiser portrait and 1,000 1v1 games to get the Nova portrait. Oh yes, another point. And this leads a little bit into the second point of the leveling system and having the numbers, which is that there were no like the real thing about getting the achievements in Legacy of in the campaign was not so much anything cosmetic, although those existed. It was more about seeing the menu, jump into the game and actually show you what that's like. Okay, so coming back to the StarCraft 2 campaign, yeah, 71, 69, nice. 81 and 52. So if you went to every single one, let's go to Art. No, let's go to Jimmy Boy. Got the Marine, right? Let's see. Oh, this is a bad example. I can't use this. Let's go to Kerrigan. And you go to the Master Archives. Now, this is going to take a bit of a. You could go to each and every mission and see exactly what you needed to do in order to complete it. So, of course, that's just finishing all the levels on a certain difficulty, but again, that doesn't really tell you much. You could have finished the mission in 5 minutes, which would be amazing. You could have also taken 50 minutes, which I guess in certain missions would be a bit more standard. The real question that they're trying to ask is that what are you attempting to, for example, this mission enemy within, I have all three. This mission I have all three, this mission I have all three, this mission, no. This mission I've only gotten 2 out of those 3 items, and I've only completed it on the hard difficulty. I've not even done brutal. I should get onto that. Harvest of Screams, again, you can see, I know the camera's partially blocking, but you can see the numbers. Normal and hard. Where's some of the ones at the bottom? Let's see, the Reckoning has been done both on hard and on brutal. Took me a while. And these were some of the achievements. So to talk about the progression for StarCraft 2, again, one reason why StarCraft 2 are getting a bit more attention is because the creators are the ex-StarCraft 2 team. Then we can also look at the profile summary to look at all of your achievements. Here they are. You also have a rank that honestly nobody reads. What people tend to care about more is, your league and so on and so forth, but this is all part of that progression system. This is all part of the things that make you feel like part of the game. Other big progression system worth mentioning is in co-op, where if you load a co-op game, they'll show you this number, regardless of which commander it is. Now it's 4 to 4 in terms of the ascension points, and this is displayed every time you load into a co-op game. Again, you go to my YouTube, my channel, there are plenty of co-op commander guides, plug to me again, then you can go back and see it. And it does make a difference. And here's the thing. After 90 points, it actually makes no difference whatsoever to your actual power level, but it's interesting to have that number. Alright, so that's one of the two the two games I wanted to directly showcase, a progression system. Let's swap to the other game, which is Vermintide 2, which is a fundamentally different game. So Vermintide 2 is an exclusively PvE game, and I specifically prepared this called the Challenges. I'm going to merge the two topics to talk about achievements and then challenges kind of in that order. So achievements and then the progression system. So what they do in Vermintide is that you have a shit ton of achievement of challenges, from missions to heroes to enemies. And some of the more interesting ones and the ones that really get me excited that I've completed, for example, are these. So what yeah, of course, there's an achievement for completing it on higher difficulties, but there's also achievements for doing things like rescue all prisoners in 60 seconds, have a statue kill 3 Chaos Warriors. What does that mean? You don't need to know, but this is not something that normally happens. The statue normally doesn't kill 3 Chaos Warriors, but you have to get it to kill 3 Chaos Warriors. You can kill these enemies, again, Chaos Warriors are enemies, you can kill them yourself, but that's not the point. The point is that you want the statue to do it. For heroes, we also have things like completing all missions on all different difficulties, as well as for specific others, is to kill them with a specific kind of weapon or to do various things with them. You then have things for enemies, so on and so forth. So this is a kind of system that shows you the achievements in game. Now, the other thing that's worth mentioning is the progression system. So in Vermintide 2, you need to level yourself from 5 to 30, and then finally to level finally to level 35, but after 35 it doesn't matter, it's purely cosmetic. And you can see that it's level 35 plus 72, but if we take another class, let's say the Zealot, it's only 35 plus 42. It basically tells you how much you've played each of the different careers. 52. Handmaiden, which is on the same row, also 52. So these are just example of two different progression systems provided by two different companies. Alright, let's swap back to the web browser. Alright, so let's come back here. So for, again, Vermintide, you have the inbuilt Steam achievements. You have also all of these other achievements that you need to manage. So this is a general summary of some of the ideas that they had, talking about meta progression, achievements, leveling, and a karma system. Now, let's go on to the last point and talk about the questions, and let's just read them out loud and then we'll swap to my answer. So, what match progression system have you particularly loved or hated? No need to limit to the RTS cheat. This one was really varied, but in general, there were long debates about the CNC, the Command and Conquer system. Now, a major concern that people in the chat had were, and to be fair, this was even touched on by Wayward Strategies, is twofold. One is clarity. Here we go. Veterancies can help provide more clarity, but this actually turns out to be quite the double-edged sword, because when you're first picking up the game and learning the game, you need to understand whether or not this kind of veterancy system actually affects the way you play. Does it actually give you better like statistics, or does it actually just make you look cool? And there was a fierce, the general consensus upon that was that it's cool to have maybe as a cosmetic, but not so much as an actual gameplay thing. The other issue about it being very snowbally, which the article itself mentioned, is that the downside of this, especially PvP, is making the game more snowbally, where a player with better micro won early engagements, widens their power gap. Basically, if a unit has already, taken an excellent fight against another player, and that unit is just getting stronger and stronger and stronger, that unit is gonna win. Now, this is kind of the case in the real world, where one reason why the Axis lost is because they kept losing their best troops. Apart from the fact that they were basically, out macroed and outproduced. But that was a factor where the units that had gained all that battlefield experience were just, wiped out in key battles. But that's probably not something you want to have in the game. The majority of the Reddit comments I've read have all expressed this idea and have expressed a deep animosity to having a unit veteran system in the PvP aspect. However, they were a lot more forgiving in the PvE sections. By the way, when I say PvP, the player versus player, this includes the 3v3. But they were a lot more forgiving in the PvE sections, co-op and campaign, where you could have a unit level up. In fact, that's something that did happen indirectly in the Warcraft 3 campaign, as your unit, again, level 1 Demon Hunter. As the campaign went on, the unit would, the hero unit would level up. A bit different because there is a difference between a hero leveling up and unit veterancy, but in this case, I think it's close enough for the comparison. So yeah, that was kind of the take on the first part about match progression. And do you love and hate unit veterancy systems? Again, pretty similar in that regard. One thing that was mentioned though about the veterancy systems is that a lot of them were a bit more, like the Reddit comments were a bit more split on the nature of unit veterancy being purely cosmetic, because some people didn't want that extra clutter, but a lot of people wanted to know, and I've heard this in the FlowChart interviews, it would be really cool to know like which Marine has killed the most units, have like a special star over his head, maybe it's only visible to you, and you can keep track of it. One thing I did think about, by the way, is that this, like, it turns into a bit of a hero unit, but the thing about hero units and, battles is that if the hero unit, just effing dies, that would be sad. You might end up, keeping the poor Marine backed up in the corner, as a trophy piece because you didn't want to lose him. But that's your call. Anyway, uh, yeah. So having this kind of rank system, it was really split. It was really split. Because a lot of people cited the examples, even in StarCraft 2. On the one hand, it's there, but it's so ignored that nobody really cares. But because nobody really cares, it doesn't confuse new players. So there was a fierce debate about whether the cosmetic thing should be implemented. Whereas the gameplay affecting one, a lot of people were, the comments were basically disagreeing with that. Again, if you have your own ideas, please feel free to mention it either in the comments or better still in the thread itself. Now, on the second point, moving to the questions, the next point was about the inventory system, about sharing the thoughts and experiences. So, when talking about the inventory system, okay, personally, myself, I never really liked the inventory systems. The same for League and Dota because I felt it added a lot of complexity. Like you need to get this gear to get that, to get that. Even in Vermintide too, I get lazy at some points, like customizing the gear. And after a while, I just set it to whatever was good and just basically left it there. I do go in and make some twerks and tweaks, but it's not really a big thing for me. Now, the Reddit response was quite curious because a lot of people either had no idea what they were talking about and left this question blank, or the ones that they did generally didn't like it because of the added complexity that it brought to. There were a noticeable minority that mentioned that this could be something good to add some randomization and customization. I would probably see this more in, you know, as they mentioned, in probably the campaign or the co-op modes where you have a bit more time to understand what does what. You probably don't want to have an inventory system on top of macro, on top of micro, on top of everything else when the marine is trying to get you. So that was that. Now on to the next question. What meta progression system have you enjoyed or hated? I talked about StarCraft 2 and Vermintide. In the responses, there were lots of different things: Dawn of War, Total War, a whole bunch of different things. Now let's move on to now. Do you think a level cap should be there or level up indefinitely? Now here's the thing. This was the one item in this entire one of the two items in the entire list that was basically unanimous, which is that yes, level up indefinitely. Coming back to Vermintide, rather than having a here we go. Rather than having like just this pathetic little 35 in the corner, why not just let it up? In this case, it would be 87 for my Bardin, which is my main class. Get this here dwarf. Just have it at 100 and 107. Like it would be really cool in game here when you have players joining and you see their portraits as level. You see little Bardin in the corner here. Yeah, as level like hundreds and thousands. Yeah, you might need to make the box a little bigger, but why not? The same issue for co-op. The same issue for StarCraft co-op. Well, why not just let this number like the issue in StarCraft is that once it hits 999, it turns into a star, as far as I understand it. But you might as well just let somebody have a level I don't know 1040, 1432 or 13,000 or 6,000 or whatever that number is. That was universally agreed upon by the people here. Just level up indefinitely. Just do it. I don't see a reason to do this apart from some engineering or cosmetic thing, but that's what the people wanted. Now here was another interesting question. It felt like one of those easy questions in the exam, to be honest. Which is that would you be excited to upgrade and expand your faction's persistent headquarters between games based on campaign progression? Yeah, the answer was yes. If you're gonna give us extra cosmetics for doing things, of course we're gonna get it. Of course we're gonna like. It's the same for portraits, but if you can make it on your buildings, then why the f not? Now, on this last point, which is, do you like earning achievements? Do you find it rewarding, or do you need some form of unlockable bonus? Now, this one was one of the most not say divisive, but split topics on the nature of achievements because when you deal with achievements, you have a lot of things because you're immediately appealing to a group or a subsection or a overlapping group of subsections because there are some people who don't give a shit about achievements. They're gonna play the game because they want to play the game. At the same time, you're gonna have the people that are collectors that want to have each and every achievement. They want to have their StarCraft 2 uh, campaign achievements at literally 100 apiece, rather than what it is currently right now. But you also create the problem where I was mentioning about the way you play differently. This could negatively impact the team games, the co-op, and the potential 3v3. Because if one person on the team is trying to go for an achievement and the rest haven't agreed to it, it can be a very, very, very tilting experience. In fact, this is something that I have trouble with in Vermintide because to complete a lot of these missions in a co-op game, you need all members of the party to understand what's going on and to agree to it. because you only need that one person to mess up, either intentionally or not, and you're gonna have a bad time. You're not gonna be able to get the achievement. You're effectively gonna have to regame. Now, of course, if all four players agreed to the achievement and died or failed, enough, we tried. But if one player specifically goes against it and says, "No, screw it, I just want to," no, forget the achievement. I just want to play the game. Then you're gonna have a problem. So the way that the achievements are presented need to be very careful and decide around fostering cooperation. The other way, like in StarCraft, is that you tend not to have a lot of the weird stuff in the team games. Again, in for example, the 1v1 ranked, there used to be achievements by get by like killing a zealot within a certain number of minutes, etc., etc. That one you could do because that's your decision. You made that call. The team game achievements that needs to be more carefully selected for. Now, the other point was that it was quite agreed that if you're going for individual achievements, it's probably better to have unlockable bonuses, more skins, plushy marine or a marine that looks cool, or attached, or a special gun or something. Again, cosmetic that that you would reward because just having something of a meter that can be done in regular, like the achievements need to be exciting. They need to have like a badge that you can show off on Steam. Just having the number isn't impressive because like in like in Vermintide, for example, the number down here can be grinded for, but the achievements themselves have to be specifically earned. And that's where the pride of the player comes in. Again, for those who care. For those who don't care, as long as the joy from those who care do not affect those who don't, it's fine. And there was a lot of debate. In fact, even the first comment is about talking about achievements by Twisted Sultan. So a lot of things there. Now let me move on to the last point of the summary, which is about social ranking and social progression. Uh, now this one was a very, 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 very probably the most this divisive point, very emotionally charged. Um, because okay, and to back up a little bit, I'm going to talk about this is the question of should a person with a high progression, achievements or whatever, given special privileges? Uh, and this was again very, very divisive. Um, because the question is whether okay, let me read this. We want to encourage players to be a positive influence on our community. So some form of banking system is an idea we're eager to or potentially launch. And the reason that this created a even I even I found that this to be very risky is because the moment you introduce incentive systems and try to control social behavior, you are going into a deep, deep, deep rabbit hole of what people will do to get it because people are going to be gaming the system. I spoke to some friends who play Overwatch. In fact, one of them is a crazy rocket who does wonderful Ace Attorney videos. Um, and he actually made it clear that the endorsement system in Overwatch is basically a joke. And basically the social ranking and social progression should be kept completely out of the game. And the best that you could do, in his argument, is to punish those that are playing poorly and report players that are doing the wrong thing, rather than just rewarding people for playing the game a long time. That said, if you want to reward players for playing a long time, and those who have gotten all the 100% achievements, things like privileges in the Discord might make sense. You might, send them certain rewards. Yes, cosmetics as well, but other things such as maybe email surveys or becoming a Stormgate partner, whatever that means. But another point that again, this was a deeply, deeply decisive topic in all of the comments who dealt with this because you're dealing with social factors. Another possible idea brought up was that you could allow people who do things for the community, um, either content creators or players that not only have a lot of achievements but have good name and standing. Maybe they're contributing on Reddit. Maybe they're making YouTube content. Maybe they're making art to become part of, maybe give them a community badge or something. But these are people that their social standing has been signed off by the company, not an automated system whatsoever. However, yeah, basically somebody at Stormgate, Kevin or Tim, have to basically sign off on it and say that this is what we want. These are people that have been recognized for their standings. Now, you want to do that for moderation? That's possible because Reddit moderation is a thing, but do not do it purely based on karma. Do not have an inbuilt system for it. And that's actually something that happened in the StarCraft 2 community. There was this guy called the Goat Puncher that for close to, I think, 6 months, he was posting updates on esports. When the call for StarCraft 2 moderation went out to add like new moderators, he was somebody who applied, he was somebody who got it. The community in general was happy. Uh, yeah, let's see if we can find him. Goat Puncher? Yeah, this guy, I believe. Yeah, moderator of StarCraft. So basically, what he did for the longest time was that he would post, this tournament is happening at this time, this tournament is happening at that time. Yeah, he was posting stuff like this for a very, very long time. Again, for quite a while before they promoted him. But again, this was a human making a decision, not an automated system. Alright, so that is the general summary of Stormgate progression, some of the ideas they had, some of the ideas that I've summarized by reading it. Hopefully you like this content. Do like and subscribe. See any final closing. But no, go and keep your eye out for Stormgate. Go and keep your eye out for play more RTSs, get more thoughts, join the next discussion topic. And again, like and subscribe for the Marine because when they do post follow up uh video basically called their thoughts, I'll be covering that too. Subscribe. Da, da, da.